There's a moment, just an instant of magical light as a greenish, yellow, purple fluorescence surrounds you as some of your party appear and others vanish. Yet, a second later, you're all certain that's how things have always been. For those of you who remain, it's as if those others never were. Maybe you dreamed them. Can everyone please roll me an Arcana check? Now that's just one of many methods for handling a group of players who struggle to be there every week. I'll show you some of my favourite techniques for ways of handling groups like this, as well as other methods which have been weighed, they've been measured, but they've been found wanting, at least for me and for my groups. My name's Rich, this is Renegade Rolls. Life happens, things come up at the last minute. Being flexible in this situation is a challenge, especially when cancellations happen at the last minute. One of the most common methods for handling a missing player, and therefore a missing character, is when another player looks after their character for the night. But when this goes wrong, it can go wrong in the most spectacular of ways. At best, the other player will play into that character and might highlight their strengths, maybe even do something cool in combat for them. But if there's any opportunities for character development to happen, the story progresses, or there's major choices to be made, then the absent player might feel a bit cheated of that moment, but things can generally get back on track the next week. At worst, there's a very awkward text message that has to get sent. Hey, so can you roll up a new character for next week? Someone else looked after them and they kind of got slightly incinerated. It can work a little more smoothly when the game master looks after the character, at least there's less risk of embarrassing deaths. But it still leads to some of those same problems of taking away that player agency while someone else makes the choices for them. It also risks DMPC syndrome, where the character ends up doing all the cool stuff, or the DM ends up talking to themselves rather than to the other players at the table. There are times when this can't be helped, but it's best avoided. A popular method is backgrounding the character, where the character doesn't play such a role in the social aspects, but is maybe still useful in combat and still sort of around in the group. I reckon this is one of the more common methods used, and I use it myself regularly as well. But again, it can take away some of that player control. Maybe a paladin could say, oh, I'm not happy that the group stole from that person while I wasn't there. If a player knows in advance that they won't be able to make it to a game session, splitting the party can be a really useful technique, where you can have something in character like, I'm going to explore this area, or I'm going to stay here and look for clues. This can be a relatively seamless way for having a good time at your table, and if the player is particularly keen, you could even run a solo session for them in between times where they play out their story. This can be really good fun and also means that nobody is missing out. A controversial one for you now, but hear me out. If a player's presence is absolutely vital for a session to go ahead, there are worse things to do than just cancelling. You could run a backup one-shot in the same world, maybe try out another system, just have a board game night, or just hang out with your friends for a change. A variation on this that I loved was where at the start of the campaign we knew that everybody wouldn't be available every week, so we decided to make different characters, different worlds for every game session, with the option to have some returning player characters if people got really attached to them. This did include one important rule, which was the session would have to be wrapped up at the end of each night, so almost like serial style, so Saturday morning cartoons or Star Trek, the original series, where everything's kind of back to normal at the end of the episode. A perfect vehicle for this, and one of my all-time favourite TTRPG sourcebooks, is the Demiverse. Each of the demiplanes is a self-contained fantasy world ranging in size from a few hundred square miles down to the size of one dungeon tile, just a single 5-foot square. Being an even lazier dungeon master than Mike Shea, when I've had to run a session in a pinch, I've got everything I need for an entire night's shenanigans on just a couple of pages. For another of my groups, I knew from the very start that scheduling might be a problem, but still wanted to find a way of including everyone in a long-form campaign. This is the technique that I did that dramatic monologue for in the intro, making the unreliability of the group into a major plot point for the characters to explore. It went down really well at the table, and I'm planning on having those characters who were away for one session but then come back to describe where they were. Maybe some pocket plane, maybe some other dimension, maybe hell? I've not decided yet. Also, if I know in advance that a player won't be able to make it, I might see about getting them to record some audio for me of how they're maybe trapped in some other place, maybe outside of time. Hello? Hello? Can anyone hear me? I don't know where I am. It's so foggy here. Please, don't come here. There's something watching. Springing that on the rest of the group should be really interesting. The places that the missing characters will go will probably be contradictory or confusing, and it'll be a puzzle for the remaining players to work out exactly what's going on. My thinking just now is it's likely to coalesce into some evil scheme by a big baddie, where whatever it is they're doing is causing the world to fragment and to shatter, taking party members with it. It's all suitably epic and fits well with the high fantasy setting, but I can also see how this would work in a sci-fi environment where, something quantum happens, someone gets disentangled from time and vanishes, or in some eldritch horror, disappearing people feels like something very much in Cthulhu's tentacly powers. The success of these techniques will obviously depend on your individual group dynamics and how highly you place that sort of story coherence amid other pillars of the game. They can have some amazing nights, even with massive plot holes. There's no problem there whatsoever. And if you and everyone at your table is having fun, then you're doing it right. I'll see you in the next video or at a table near you rolling an improbable succession of ones. Cheers.